Business Focus with Kudzie, Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.
Good morning and welcome to Business Focus right here on Capi Talk. You've got questions to do with business, drop them up on our WhatsApp platform 0719 100404. Kudzie Sharara is in the studio to help us understand more of the world of business. Good morning, Kudzie. How are you?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, everyone.
Great. Let's begin with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update of Friday last week.
Thank you, Tinashe. So, yeah, the ZSC traded slightly in the negative territory. Although I would say it was flat because it was a 0.04% drop on the all-share index and a 0.2% loss on the top 10 index. So it was relatively a mixed bag there. And then just looking at the top risers and fallers, Unifreight seems to be doing very well, up another 14.98%. So Unifreight is now up by more than 700% since the introduction of ZIG. So,
700%?
Yes. So, for example, if you had put in about $100, we haven't seen, yes, we have seen a little bit of currency depreciation. So you can discount the 700% gain, but it's still above 600%. So if you had put like $100, you'll be sitting on about $600. So that's a good return there. Although there aren't that many shares that are trading, it shows that the counter is tightly held, and those who are looking for shares are having to push the price there of Unifreight. Unifreight is in the logistics business. They've got trucks that carry cargo. Unifreight, I'm sure you've seen some of their trucks, the Swift ones. And then also on the upside is Art, up by 14.71%. I think we'll talk about Art later on, but it did well on Friday following the release of its trading update. So it was up by 14.71%. Tenor also adding 7.83%, and then Star Africa and Mashaline Holdings adding 0.98% and 0.76% respectively. And then on the downside, the biggest loser was Hippo with a 2.55% drop. We'll talk about Hippo later on. And then Pro Plastics also easing by 1.62%. GB Holdings losing 1.25%. Zimre again shedding 1.12%, and then Ariston losing 0.65%. So that's how the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange traded on Friday. I think it will continue to trade sideways. That means that not much strong direction, whether it is going up or down. It will continue to trade sideways. So that's how the ZSC traded. I continue to see people sending me messages in terms of how they can also be involved in the trading of shares on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. I always say that just go to the ZSC website, www.zsc.co.zw, and you'll be able to find contact details of stockbrokers who can help you in terms of participating on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. The ZSC also has a ZSC training, www.zsctraining.co.zw, where you can actually get material in terms of actually learning what the stock market is all about, and you can participate on the market and be a party owner of a company. So company yakati iri kudai, company yakati mazuva ano ndoinopedza company. You can actually be a shareholder in that company and also get to enjoy when they declare dividends, or when others start demanding those shares, you can also be able to sell higher than you bought.
Saka Kudzie, ukatotenga ma-shares ako, say for example to any of the companies that are listed, ndopo unokwanisa kutaurawo kuti tiri kuvaka imwe complex kwete kuti iswe Manchester United takatenga chiusina
ma-shares exactly.
So you'd rather we have the yes, shareholding.
Takavhura rimwe branch kakati, you see now, because you're actually a shareholder. You actually have a say in the company. When they have their annual general meeting, they're actually allowed to go and vote for whatever decision that they want to make. So yeah, that's the difference with with Rebora. Takatenga ningi, but
unakana mashares acha vasitombokuzivi kuti uriko.
Exactly. But with for example, if you invest in real estate investment trust, let's say the Tigere real estate investment trust, no to Island Park ndeduka
ane ndokuradza kuti zvatakavaka
ndezvedu izvo zvitoplan kutenga imwe phase 2, you see, because they are
zviri kuita.
So yeah, you see, that's so it's something that when we're growing up we didn't know about these things, but I think we should try and let our kids know about these things, and so that they can also be investors.
So munhu anokwanisa kutenga mashares, is there a minimum age?
Yeah, unofanira kunge wane chitupa for account, but then you can actually do it for your kids.
Okay.
Yeah, you can talk to your broker and you can do it for your kids.
Hey,
$100 or 27 why?
I don't know how it.
Are you telling me that if somebody had spent in $1,000 and 7,000?
Yeah. So if you had invested in Unifreight, yes. It's I don't know. There are fundamentals that are related to the movement of prices.
So is the
yes, so yes, they actually yes. So there's actually what they call an intrinsic value of a company, and then there's a book value of a company. When you're just looking at the value of the company, you're looking at the assets. But then you can also there are various methods of calculating the value of a company, discounted cash flows, price multiples. There are different methods that you can use to calculate the intrinsic value of a share. And then someone is saying, my shares a company in Rutomada, I want to be a part owner of this company. Then they buy as much as they can, and they sometimes, because they are trying to buy to the level that they want, they push the shares in terms of the share price. And then one told now about benefit. If, for example, you had bought it at the beginning when Zig was launched, that is no shares. Now someone is pushing because they also want to buy into the company. You can also decide to say, I need from Taza 7,000, so let me sell my shares or benefit. But if you don't sell, unongoramba uine mashares ako, value yawo yakwira, hatiziye zvinozoitika kumberi whether anoramba achikwira or anodzika. It's allowed. That's why the market trades every day. If you think you have made the returns that you were projecting or that you wanted, you're allowed to sell your shares. So yeah, that's it anyway.
All right, so before we move on to the next subject, there's Majimba Cooper from Greendale who's got a question who says, Morning Kudzi, konyaya kuti RBZ is planning to convert diaspora remittances into ZIG. Haisikuzoviringa ma inflows and economic growth here.
This is the way I take it. There was actually a video clip that was circulating, and the media house that shared that video clip accompanied the video clip with a narration of or a summary of what they said the guy who was on the video was saying. But for me, looking at that summary and what the guy was saying, so
it was a wrong caption.
For me, it was a wrong caption. Others might think otherwise. There was a wrong caption. But again, then this is an official from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. I don't know what the platform was, but when you are on a platform and but tinofunga kuti chicho unofunga kuti chingaitwe kuti mari dzemaremittances tinyatso benefit as a country, and you unotaurawo opinion yako. Unfortunately, when you are in a position of authority, seuyu aibva ku Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, vanhu vanobva vatotora zvaataura sekunge ndo zvakuda kutoitwa handiti. So there is no the RBZ has since come out with a statement to say kuti no, hatina maplans okuchinja the way ma remittances are coming into the country. Hatina maplans ekuti munhu kana wapiwa ma remittances watumirwa ma US ako kana ma pounds kana ma rands timachinje into the local currency. Hatina ma discussions akadaro so far within the central bank. So this is the message that then came from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. You can find it in the newspapers. You can find it on their social media pages. On Twitter, they have the message there to say we have got no plans to force people to convert their remittances into the local currency, which is the ZIG. So, but it's something that came out, and people made their own judgments. Others actually thought the Reserve Bank was planning to to change the way remittances are being received in the country and start giving them the local currency, which, to the fears of the listener there, it might end up forcing some people to kana wanga uchimbotumira through these money transfer agencies, the formal money transfer agencies, unopedzera kutumira na conductor webhasi waunozva kuti kana malaicha waunozva kuti uyu ndikamutumira nemari yangu, yes there is risk yekuti angona kungozoita zvaanoita nemari yangu, but machances ekuti mari yangu inosvika ari mai, kana ndamatumira ari ma-US anosvika ari ma-US, kana ndamatumira ari maranzi anosvika ari maranzi, are very high. So that would have driven remittances underground instead of now where we are seeing them coming through the formal channels. However, in my view, in my opinion, at some point within kana zvinhu zvanaka, exchange rate yedu yanaka, mari yakunyatsochinja, easily convert, where you can say kuti any day that you want you can convert into US or convert into Zig, and the exchange rate is an exchange rate that is acceptable to everyone. I think we can then have a conversation to say, should people continue to use, in fact, ipapoka, even now mukati maremittances are received in US dollars, kana tazenge and kana tichinge tazo. I'm not saying now or whatever, I'm not giving a time frame. When we are now like a normal economy, like what happens in South Africa, like in the UK, like any other country where they only use their local currency, tikazowana orombo rakanaka rekuti takutrade in our own local currency, then obviously we can have this conversation kuti saka munhu kana achinge apiwa ma-US ake ozofamba sei handiti kana areceive ma-US ake, and I think munhu anenge zvinenge zvaautomatic because munyika munenge makunzi you don't sell, you don't ma-transactions ngangoitwa in the local currency, which means even ukatumirwa ma-pounds, marands or whatever, wakutofana kuenda kunotsvaga kwekumachinja, and hopefully at that time zvinenge zvafomawo and easy, pasisina kakubirirwa kanenge achifungira kuti ndikubirwa mari yangu ndiri kuchinjwa nerate isiriyo, zvinenge zvaakufamba.
So pari zvino munhu wese anenge angotumirwa mari yake kubva kunze kwenyika unongonoitora nekarenzi yauya nayo, kana uchida kuti ichinjwe kuZig unoita zvaunoda iwewe. It's your choice. That they are called free funds, and the Reserve Bank is saying they remain free funds, use them as you like, and but kana pachizenge tazvosvika, so this is now me kuti kana tichizenge tasvika nguva yekuti we are now using a mono currency, maybe the local currency only, then obviously you will not be ukamapiwa kuti ukwanise kuzotenga within the Zimbabwean economy unofanira kuzomachinja, but at your own pace. Hauchafoswa kunzi achingosvika chete maaccount money transfer hauchaibata wakutopiwa maZig. I think we should maintain izvozvo zvokuti unopiwa foreign currency yako, but at least unonga kuziva kuti I've got formal channels where I can go and change my money and without being prejudiced in terms of exchange rate. So Kudzie, there are so many listed companies that have been releasing their trading updates. Let's talk about some of them in terms of their performances.
Yes, so one of the companies that also released a trading update is Art Corporation. Art is maybe just to talk about some of the units that they have. They are into tissue making, they are into battery making, they are into they also make school stationery, and among other, they also own my estates. So this is Art Corporation, and they are telling us that revenue for the so this is a trading update. A trading update is like all companies that are listed on the stock market. After every 3 months, they must tell investors and the public to say, this is how we are performing as a company, so that investors can decide, company yangu iruita zvakanaka here, should I continue to hold these shares, should I sell these shares, should I buy more? So this is a requirement from the stock market. So this is a third quarter trading update at Corporation, where they are saying revenue for the period ended, third quarter ended June 2024, their revenue was 24.9 million. And then they are saying that volumes recovered in the batteries division. So they've got they do batteries for vehicles, they also do batteries for solar. And they're saying the batteries division, the volumes recovered by 5%. So there was a 5% increase in the volumes for batteries. And they're also saying overall volumes for the year, however, declined by 8%. And just trying to look at where did they lose these volumes. Like we said, for the batteries, the volumes went up by 5%. But when you then look at their other other divisions. For example, in terms of pen volumes, pen volumes declined by 26%. That's really huge there. Their volumes declining by 26%. But I think it's since it's a quarterly trading update, maybe it also depends on kuti zvikoro zvanga zviri at what stage zvazvichivhurwa here. I think ndopa vanotengesa mapeni akawanda than the other period. And then they are also saying that vane Mutare estates where they sell timber, and they're saying in terms of that, their timber volumes actually went up by 21%. So that's for timber there. So that's a trading update that is coming from ART, which is one of the companies that is listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And in terms of outlook, Ivose management, how are they seeing things? They're saying the economic environment is expected to remain difficult with inflation, currency instability, and erratic power supplies to continue weighing down growth opportunities. So this is the management and art saying we think inflation and currency zicharamba zvine instability. I think they are reading from what we saw in the last couple of weeks, where the premium between the official exchange rate and the alternative exchange rate has widened to almost like 60%. So I think this is what they're talking about here. However, they say the group will continue to take the tough decisions necessary to protect the business and its sustainability beyond the current situation. So that's Art Corporation. Yeah.
So because when we look at Tanganda and Hippo, they are all into agriculture. They're agriculture related.
Yes. Yeah.
And they are also exporters. How are they faring?
Yeah. So when you look at, we started with Hippo. Hippo is a sugar producer, and they've got they mill sugar. They've got a milling plant, and they've got their own sugar which they produce in their own fields, and then they also get sugar from private farmers. So we want to look at in terms of area under sugar cane, area under cane. They are telling, and this is for the period to June. They are telling us that when you look at the company, the area that has got cane at the moment went up by 1%. And then for private farmers, it went up by 2%. And then overall by 1%. So private farmers are doing a little bit more in terms of the area that they've planted with cane. And then the yield, the yield in terms of the tons, for the company, yields went up by 3%, whilst for the private farmers, yields went up by 1%, which means that in terms of yields, company, I think they're doing better than the private farmers. I'm sure the reasons are for me, they might be obvious. Company in my resources are better, in a technology is better probably than the farmers, and some farmers might still be learning the ropes and register the overall yield for the private farmers. And then in terms of production, sugar goes on Obuda at the end of the day. The company has managed to grow its production by 3%, but when you look at the private farmers, they grew their production by a massive 18%. So again, there you can see with the private farmers, they've now done better in terms of the actual production that is out there, because the private farmers, they've got more land than the company in terms of area under cane. The private farmers, they've got more, and it's also reflecting on their overall production, although in terms of yield they're doing less than the company. And then now looking at the domestic sales sugar, it's no now shops here, as well as the export, as you were asking. So for domestic sales, the sugar zakadzikira by 7%. I think we have seen some of the reasons. There was a time pakanzi sugar inenge kuti netse government ndobva yati sugar free imports, and we started to see sugar products from Zambia, Mozambique, South Africa. We started to see their varieties in the market. Although that statutory instrument yakazobviswa that statutory instrument of 80 statutory instrument 80 of 2023 was later repealed in February this year. But I think even now, if you go to some of these shops, we are still seeing some of the foreign sugar, and that resulted in domestic sales for sugar going down by 7%. And then for exports, also coming off by 1%. And they're saying that they were trying to prioritize the domestic market. So there's a slight decline there in terms of the exports of sugar again. So in total, volumes, sales volumes for sugar, that's for Hippo, were down by 7%. So that's Hippo. You also asked about Tanganda, which is also sales in the local market and exports. So Tanganda, they do production of tea.
Masamba,
yes, Masamba, exactly. And also macadamia nuts. They also do avocado and they export, especially the macadamia and avocado, they export those ones. So in terms of tea volumes, they're saying that the volumes were 11% below prior year, and then they're also saying that in terms of macadamia, production grew by 61%. So I think last week paper out of blueberry, we also mentioned macadamia. So Tanganda actually does more macadamia here in Zimbabwe, and they are now selling about 1,487 tons, which were up 61% from the previous period. And then so I think, and then in terms of their revenue for the quarter, it was about they generated about $3.4 million for that period. So that's Tanganda. And in terms of outlook, outlook tichienda mberi as a company, how are they seeing things? They are saying the operating environment is expected to remain complex due to both policy changes and the effects of the El Nino-induced drought. The impact of the introduced ZiG currency and fiscal and monetary measures are expected to sustain macroeconomic stability in the short term, and the medium to long-term impact can be ascertained after policy refinements. So this is also Tanganda saying the environment is expected to remain complex. And these are management, my captains of industry. Well, that's how they are seeing things. So yeah, that's Hippo and Tanganda.
Just briefly, Kudzibo's time yakupera. What's the story with OK Zimbabwe?
Yeah, OK Zimbabwe is doing well in terms of volumes. Their volumes increased by 20.2%, and this is for the quarter and the 3 months ended 30 June 2024. So they're doing fantastic in terms of sales volumes. Although when you look at their revenue, so your volumes are growing by 20%, but your revenue is increasing by 2.2%. So there's a mismatch there. It's either their prices are low or they are selling low margin products, where that's why maybe there's that mismatch. But they are also saying they are selling a little bit more OK Mart. I think it's a result of traders. Unotenga iko unoswipa uko kwakachipa in bulk unoswipa vobva vayotengesa nema US in kuma tax shops. You see, so some people will be burning anotora dollar rake unoribena it to whatever 23 rate unoswipa odzoka otenga OK. However, if they can manage to restock, then they will still be fine.
Right, Kuds, let's end it here and make way for the news at 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for the insight in the world of business. We do this tomorrow.